and I'm delighted to welcome you to our annual New York seminar, which this year, I am pleased to note, is being co-sponsored by the permanent missions to the United Nations of Italy and of Mexico. Our focus today is on the stirring and challenging phrase, quote, sustaining peace, unquote, as outlined in the concurrent UN Security Council and General Assembly resolutions passed on the same day this past April, which embodied a new vision of the UN's peace-building architecture. The dual resolutions describe an inherently political and inclusive process spanning prevention, mediation, conflict management, reconciliation, and recovery. And they prescribe a way to leverage the UN's three pillars: human rights, peace and security, and development in a mutually reinforcing way. They also represent a conceptual shift from peace building to sustaining peace as transformative and forward-looking. Peace building is no longer confined to post-conflict situations, but applicable at all phases, before the outbreak, during the conflict, and after it has abated. We'll be looking forward today how to turn this new vision into concrete, actionable measures across the various intergovernmental entities and the UN system, both here at headquarters and in the field. We'll be addressing the matter in 4 different sessions, including one over lunch, and you have the full schedule of them with the names of panelists and subjects they will be covering. We will kick off this ambition exercise with opening remarks from the ambassadors of our 2 co-sponsoring member states, as we all take a forward-facing look at making sustaining peace something which we hope will become embedded in the mindset of the UN and its member states. Before we begin, just one housekeeping note. We will be webcasting this beginning portion of the seminar, but the rest of the day, following the comments by the 2 envoys, will be conducted with the cameras off and under the Chatham House rule of non-attribution. You have the ambassadors' full biographies in your paper, so let me introduce them just briefly. The first to speak will be Sebastiano Cardi, the permanent representative of Italy to the United Nations since July of 2013. Ambassador Cardi's 35-year diplomatic career includes posts as Deputy Secretary General in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Rome, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Italian Embassy in Washington, and Special Envoy of the Foreign Minister for Reform of the UN Security Council. I'm laughing because I just told Sebastiano that was a really thankless task. Following him will be Juan Jose Gomez Camacho, the permanent representative of Mexico since February of this year. His many posts include service as his country's ambassador to the European Union, while serving concurrently as the head of mission in Belgium and Luxembourg, and ambassador to the UN and other organizations in Geneva. So, Ambassador Cardi, if you would come and take my place here and start us off.
Thank you, Warren. Warren, thank you very much. Again, it's always a pleasure to be here this time in a new setting. We like it very much. We look forward, of course, to following this seminar. You mentioned the UN Security Council reform, which I've been working on for 25 years, because I was here in the 90s too, and then I became the special envoy. We are still there, but sometimes the UN is delivering. The Peace-Building Commission is one of the examples, positive one example. I mean, it was established in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, and it proved to be a very, very important instrument. After the first years of testing, I think we have seen in the last 2 years a real strong resurgence of the UN capacity through the peace building to help and sustain peace. So we think actually that, of course, without the Security Council, of course, remains the principal pillar of UN security of the UN efforts in peace and security. but we really think that also by the work of the chairs of the Peace Building Commission in the last few years, it has been possible to establish a new pattern of initiatives. So as I said, 2016, this year has been also as 2015, a crucial year for strengthening the UN capacity. Italy has came back to the Peace Building Commission 2 years ago in 2015, and we started really to see the potential. The potential, of course, we are talking about, the issue at the beginning was to have an instrument that could help countries post-conflict. Post-conflict means after, a war has ravaged your country, so you depend on foreign aid, on foreign assistance. But this idea has completely evolved now. For example, Italy, I would like to give you a very few examples. We are trying to help very much the countries of West Africa. Most of them came out of very, very violent wars at the start of the century. And of course, they also had the Ebola. So we are trying to help them in very many sectors. One of them being the security sector, because of the Libyan instability and of the Sahel instability. They really need to have a strong security sector, and we are trying to help them in this respect. And the second, for example, is judicial sector. I am in New York the vice president of the International Criminal Court, as you may know. And the International Criminal Court is the last resort international body for justice, in case of violent crimes, crimes against humanity. But we think that it would be important also that these important international bodies can help, can establish programs to strengthen and enhance these post-conflict countries in the quest for stronger institutions. So you need rule of law, stronger institutions, you need security around the country, and of course you need also foreign assistance, to rebuild and to help the economy especially. So these are just a few examples of things that we do also through the Peace Building Commission, but not only through the Peace Building Commission, to help this country not relapse into conflicts. Of course, Italy also has a number of not only at the governmental level, but also in the NGO community. There is especially one very well-known organization, Comunità Sant'Egidio, which has been active for decades in Africa especially, to help exactly to attain the objective of countries in post-conflict not relapsing into conflict. So I just gave you some examples about what we do, at the UN and outside the UN, in the multilateral fora and the bilateral fora, to try to sustain peace, because this is exactly what we want to achieve. We want to achieve through the Peace Building Commission. As I said, the resolutions that have been adopted this year, and I would like to salute Ambassador Gillian Bird of Australia for incredible work, and Ambassador Scott, who just arrived, former chair of the Peace Building Commission, for his really incredible work there. We have been following him, Antonio Patriota before you, and now Masharia Kamau for what you have tried to do. And I think it's, as I said before, you were not here, very, very important instrument for the UN. So as a member of the organizational committee of the PBC, we see the PBC as a leader, as I said before, of the prevention-based strategy of the UN, trying to tackle all the drivers, and I mentioned some of them, to find lasting solution to crises. So a crucial element for sustaining peace is the importance of partnership with regional organizations. This is something that we really believe in, especially the African Union, because most of the conflicts happen still in Africa. And of course, it's also important to foster cooperation with the international financial institutions. The World Bank and other regional international financial institutions can help. They have money, they have the resources, they have the instruments, so they will be, I think, and they are already, an important partner of the Peace Building Commission. Because we think, as I said before, that it is essential to preventing lapses and relapses. We have to strengthen the economic capability of these countries, and especially of the African continent. This was, by the way, the main object of the very recent Italy-Africa conference in Rome, which was attended by 45 foreign ministers of Africa. And this was exactly around how to help Africa become a strong economic partner in the decades to come. So let me conclude with these very few words by underlining the importance, and this is very important, I think, predictable, sustained resources to peace-building efforts, as is recalled by the resolution. So there is widespread agreement on the need to secure more predictable funding for sustaining peace, but it's not easy to attain this objective, very difficult. In this framework, Italy has decided to resume its contributions to the Peacebuilding Fund throughout 2016 and is willing to ensure more predictable funds for peace building in the future. And this is probably one of the key aspects we have not been able yet to provide within the UN budget or outside the level of resources that the peace building needs. This is why it's so important also to go through bilateral channels. So I will conclude here. I thank again the IPI and Warren for the introduction. And thank you, all of you. And it would be, I wish you a productive day and productive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador Gomez Camacho, please.
Hey, Warren, thank you so much. Good morning to you all. Well, let me start just with a quick comment on what my friend Sebastiano said at the beginning and you too regarding UN reform, which in fact applies to peace, to sustaining peace and the architecture of the organization, which is things don't happen until they do. So we should never stop trying. And this is perhaps a good example of that. When we began getting involved in this resolution and this new reflection on the issue, the most striking question to us on this was, how is it that 70%, if you think in numbers, 70% of the total budget of the UN, which is, let's say, annually around 11, 12 billion US dollars, again, a year, 70% of that is spent in peacekeeping operations. Mm. Over the last 10 years, 70 billion US dollars have been spent in peacekeeping. Now, the problem is not only that 70 billion have been spent in peacekeeping, but in fact that represents the 70% of the total budget, which means, the other side of the coin, that only 30% is spent in the rest of the UN activities, including, of course, development. So this new concept of sustaining peace and the reason why we believe that these two resolutions are in fact landmark resolutions that are trying, or in reality, changing some paradigms of this organization is precisely this. It means that, first, we are understanding that there's no peace without development. There's no peace, there's no way peace can exist without prosperity, without living people's quality of life, without ensuring that every human being has access to the basic things that we all need. Without that, we will always only spending 70% of the budget trying to maintain peace after conflict, or trying to restore peace after terribly bloody conflicts. So these resolutions are telling us, and it means again that we are finally agreeing that we need to work on the other thing, that the only real tool to make or ensure that peace comes is precisely that. And it also includes or means a recognition that there is no way that this organization's charter can be realized, as we have been trying for more than 70 years, again with the same tool, which is development. That's at the end the only single important thing we should be doing. And we think we are extremely encouraged, or or maybe very optimistic, not only because these resolutions were adopted the way they did, or the way they were, but also because it happens at a very interesting, fascinating time of this organization, which is the 2030 Agenda. The 2030 Agenda goes exactly on the same lines as the sustaining peace concept, or rather I should say the other way around. Sustaining peace is coming precisely at the time of the inception of the 2030 Agenda, which in itself means exactly what I was saying. It means that we are finally understanding that development should be in the heart of the work of the organization, that development has nothing to do with the old South-North developing countries paradigm, but rather that we all are exactly on the same boat, and that the organization, therefore, will have to, if I may, it may sound that I go too far, but it's what we think. The organization needs to reinvent itself around development, around the 2030 Agenda. And when it comes to peace, it's exactly the same point. It has the challenge, together with member states, invent itself around this new notion of development first, of development as a way to ensure long-term sustainable peace. And that, and we, or they, we all together need also to understand that if we don't do that, we will be, again, not only missing the point, but keep spending 70% of the budget's organization in trying to restore peace after terribly bloody conflicts. This will entail an enormous challenge. And probably the least obvious challenge that this new paradigmatic change will imply for all of us is the mental one. It's almost the psychological one. It's the one that will force us all, whether we are member states or the institutions itself, the UN itself, its bodies, its organs, to leave behind inertias, to leave behind traditional thinking, to leave behind a silos approach that we all like so much here in the UN, and embrace this new concept through new ways. And again, if we take this together with this ongoing process of reorganizing the organization around development through the 2030 Agenda, if we are wise, skillful, and smart enough to take this new concept of sustaining peace and reforming the architecture of peace of the organization, mounting it on top of this new 2030 Agenda wave, we can really make an enormous change. So we do have an opportunity. We all like to say everything is historical. I don't know whether this is historical or not, but it's very important. It's a great opportunity that I truly hope that we are, again, brave enough, skillful enough, smart enough, wise enough to take advantage of it. And certainly Mexico will be very, very engaged in that process. And in fact, this is why we decided, as you may know, to create a group of friends of sustaining peace. Many countries have been very quick to reply positively to this new body, whereby or through which we want to work cross-regionally with all member states and the organization in precisely promoting this new concept, promoting this new paradigmatic change, and making sure that we can realize it. So thank you so much for having Mexico here, and most importantly, thank you so much for having arranged for this seminar. I hope you can keep organizing them, and if I may suggest, doing it with broader audiences, not referring that this is a small audience, but rather we need to go outside the either individuals, countries, delegates, or officers of the organizations that are involved on this. As precisely last night in a dinner on a totally unrelated issue, we were saying, but I think it applies here too, to make big changes, we need to go outside of the bubbles, and we need to go outside of the little ecosystems we live in. And all that has to do with the architecture of peace is a micro ecosystem of the organization. So going broader is going to be very important, and count on Mexico to do that. Thank you so much, and congratulations again for having organized this.
I can invite Ambassador Skoog, Ambassador Byrd to join me up here. Ambassador Gomez Camacho, I'm very happy to meet you today. And I want to say I am a big fan